Well, to be candid with you, I don't know that he has the votes right now. I think there's a lot of concern in the Democratic caucus.
Concern in the Democratic caucus, outright opposition in the Republican conference. The task is clear for President Obama.
And it's time to get some momentum back on his side as this healthcare debate continues. Topline starts right now.
Welcome to ABCNews.com's Topline. I'm David Chalian.
And I'm Rick Klein.
Each weekday at noon Eastern, we're bringing you the latest political headlines, reporting, insight, analysis, everything you need to know before you head out the door to lunch.
Keep the conversation going. It's twitter.com/thenote. Let us know what you think, including whether you like the fact that David is in New York today and I'm in Washington.
So, Rick, kick us off with this Split City edition. What is your top line today?
Sales pitch, a big week for President Obama as he hits the road and tries to hit the pavement on Capitol Hill as well to get some momentum back on his side in the healthcare debate. You could sense, David, last week a very rough one for the Obama White House as they tried to make the pitch for healthcare reform. Some hopeful signs toward the end of the week, but really chaos on Capitol Hill. He needs to corral that.
And we now know about a White House Rose Garden press conference tomorrow. And obviously, ABC News is hosting this big conversation with America with the president on this topic. So I think they are aiming to do just that, Rick. Filling the donut hole. That is the big news today that the White House is touting. Came out over the weekend. You remember back in 2003 with the Medicare prescription drug benefit, this issue of a donut hole where seniors would lose some of their prescription benefit for a certain amount of money. That now is the drug companies have decided to join with the White House and say, hey, we're going to cut some of those costs. We're going to put about $80 billion into this. Rick, this is exactly the kind of Medicare savings that the president is hoping for to help pay for health care reform.
Yes, and clearly the pharmaceutical industry wants to continue to have a seat at the table as this proceeds. But once again, though, this is a voluntary arrangement. I'm always skeptical of those when it's just people saying, yeah, we'll do our best to hold this down. There are some numbers attached, but just voluntary at this stage. Iran walk. President Obama shifts his rhetoric, but only slightly, on Iran a week into these protests that have just paralyzed the country, the most turmoil we've seen in this country in 30 years. And he is still getting, though, a lot of pressure from the right, Senator John McCain and the number of Republicans saying he has to be speaking more about these protesters, about the integrity of the elections. Clearly, the White House monitoring this on an hour-by-hour basis.
They are, and he used the words unjust. He's now focused on exactly what you're saying, the actions we're seeing in the streets with these demonstrations, less so on the election. As you know, Mitt Romney, John McCain, they came out calling this election fraudulent. The White House is still nowhere near that. And poking fun. Friday night at the radio TV dinner, the other big annual black tie dinner in Washington, the president was poking fun, of course, at the press again, but he had some fun poked at him too. We'll show you a video later on. Jib Jab, those guys that have been famous since 2004 for sort of mocking Washington in politics, they took a little poke at the president. Yeah,
the Jib Jabbers this time endowing President Obama with superhuman traits, maybe a little bit too superhuman, depending on the political point of view. But let's start with healthcare. We're joined now by Ralph Neas, who is the CEO of the National Coalition on Healthcare and a veteran of Capitol Hill battles on the Supreme Court and many other issues. Ralph, thanks for being here. And I want to start, first of all, with the battle over the public option. You're going to be the first witness tomorrow when the House begins hearings on this bill that came out late last week that includes a public option. From your point of view, does the public option have to be part of the solution that Congress passes?
The House bill is an excellent start, and it does contain a public insurance option. Yesterday's New York Times showed that by a 4-to-1 margin, the American people want a public insurance option. I think it's good that it is in there. It's got to be carefully designed so that it's not weighted against the private insurance industry. But the American people want choice of doctors, insurance plans. They want freedom from fear in terms of losing what they have. So this gives them a choice of doctors, choice of plan. It also will make sure, the House bill and the Senate bills, that you cannot be denied coverage because of your age or pre-existing condition. This is all about choice in being able to make sure that you have quality, affordable health care, everyone in America.
Ralph, let's show our audience the actual numbers from that New York Times CBS poll about a government-run health insurance plan, that public option. 72% 60% were in favor of it, 20% opposed. But as you said, they also really want to make sure what they have doesn't change. And I want to get at that. The president, time and time again, promises if you like what you've got, nothing's going to change. But is that entirely honest? Because isn't reforming the whole healthcare industry sort of convincing America that it all is going to have to change? We are not going to be able to have sort of MRIs on demand. People's coverage will inevitably change if this kind of reform goes through, no?
David, I think that's a very fair point. The statistics, the polling numbers were overwhelming yesterday, but everyone has to realize that we are addressing all Americans, and we're addressing the fear they have of losing what they currently have with respect to their private insurance plan. What we have to make sure is whatever happens is sustainable. I think what happened last week with CBO will be looked upon subsequently as a positive turning point, because we need not just coverage, not just quality, but we also need to make sure we pay for it, that it's budget neutral. This has to be sustainable. We have to have cost containment. It can be done, but everyone, consumer, physicians, health providers, insurance companies, pharmaceuticals, everyone has to be part of a shared responsibility.
Ralph, excuse me, cost containment means less care in some cases, no?
I think if this is done right, that's not the case. Cost containment, when combined with efficiencies and quality and administrative reform, will mean better care for all in an affordable way. But we have to make sure we have not just long-term cost containment like prevention, like healthcare technology and other things, but also address the short term. We have to address those Congressional Budget Office numbers.
Ralph Neas, I want to ask you about an op-ed that you wrote in Roll Call 2 weeks ago. One of the big choices ahead for Democrats is bipartisanship, and what is it worth, what price is it worth to try to get Republicans at the table? And you wrote that, quote, if a measure is enacted with the support of only one party, it will not inspire the trust and confidence that such a law demands. Is it critical for this thing, for its passage and its acceptance, for there to be significant Republican support?
The most critical thing is to enact health care reform for everybody that has quality and is affordable.
But if this squeaks through, if this is 51 votes in the Senate.
It would be sad, it would be tragic if it's not bipartisan. All the major laws in the past, and I come from a civil rights background, were able to garner bipartisan support. If you get the support of both parties, you don't have to have every Republican, but it would help to have some Republicans join the Democrats to inspire confidence and trust. We've got to win the hearts and minds of the American people. After the enactment of the law, it's got to be overseen, it's got to be implemented, it has to be enforced. You need a really good consensus behind this law.
Ralph Neas, CEO of the National Coalition on Healthcare. We look forward to your testimony tomorrow, and we will be watching it very closely. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, David.
We're going to take a very quick break. When we're back, more Top Line with Time's Karen Tumulty. Stay right here.